There it goes. Okay.
Good. Okay, step up to the mic. Just take it off.
Not on. No on switch. That's all right. Yeah, I guess that's not on. There's no on switch on it, so. Oh well. Okay, everyone, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming. Good afternoon. My name is Sam Allen. I'm a server analyst with Intermountain ESD. Can you guys hear me okay back there? The mic doesn't appear to be on. There's no on switch, so I guess we didn't quite get everything set up. Yeah.
No, these aren't powered. They're all ran down there. It's under the table. So.
Yeah.
We're good.
You want to introduce yourself?
I am Jeremiah Gard. I work for Intermountain ESD also. And my primary school is Pendleton School District, but I help out anywhere and everywhere.
So just a little disclaimer, we are in no way affiliated with Veeam, but we do have a vendor here, David. He's able to answer any questions if we don't know the answer, so we do have that resource. And we basically just wanted to offer this session giving you some insights into our experience with Veeam. We've been using it for a couple of years now, and it's been very positive, and we wanted to share that as a solution for you guys as well. How many of you are running Hyper-V? Just a few. VMware? Most of the class. All right. And then if any of you aren't virtualized, we hope that with what we share with you today, maybe that'll encourage you to take that step. It's a really great way to go. So what is Veeam Backup? It is a full backup and replication solution designed for highly virtualized environments, both VMware and Hyper-V. You are able to, it's very, very flexible. Which is my next one here. A backup to disk with built-in dedupe and compression. Also supports tape. So basically, you can take any of your virtual machines, whether they're running on a cluster or standalone hosts, whatever the case may be, and back them up to disk. And you can have it do a secondary job to another target. That might be in another geographic location or something that is unplugged from the network on occasion, whatever that may be. You can also back up to tape. So, your long-term storage, and that, of course, is off the network. It also has an option for Cloud Connect replication. That is, there are vendors out there that provide Cloud Connect services. You sign up with one of them, and you're able to offload your disaster recovery backups to their systems. It has built-in WAN acceleration, so you're not actually transferring 30 terabytes. It does built-in compression, so the number of your mileage will vary, but that's also a great option. It has full support for PowerShell, can be highly automated. So I know probably a lot of you have automated tasks that you do. If you bring on a new virtual machine, maybe you have a list of tasks that you do with that. Veeam will fully support any of those automated workflows that you can establish. And we are an MSP, so we also work with city, county governments and things of that nature. But I did want to point out that it is FIPS 140-2 compliant. So it supports full encryption, and that also would be to your cloud providers. So you don't really have to worry too much about them seeing your data. You can encrypt it before it leaves your network. So we had a quick little list of positives. We've got, with Veeam, we have excellent insight and reporting into our backup jobs. It will tell you things that you may not realize. It will isolate the bottleneck in your network, whether it's the source, the network, or the target. So when you're running a backup job, you can actually kind of identify where the slowdown is, where the bottleneck is. That's great insight to have, especially for districts that have terabytes of data that you need to back up on a regular basis. It is highly customizable and flexible. I kind of hit on that a little bit earlier, but really any type of workload in your VM environment, you can get it backed up with this. There's backup to zip files for your immediate need. I just had a situation where I needed to take a positive backup and store it on another location just so that I had peace of mind when I was doing an important process. So I just right-clicked on the job, on the actual virtual machine, told it to do a Veeam zip backup, and it created a compressed backup with deduplication on whatever target I put it to. It could be a USB hard drive attached to the server you're backing up from. It could be a network location. And then also I was able to set an expiration date on that. So if that storage is still online, I set it to expire in a week. I just wanted to have the peace of mind of another complete backup. It did it quickly, easily, and in a week it's gone. So it's a great option there as well. It is easy to use. Veeam advertises about 15 minutes from installation to running your first backup. I can attest to that. It is pretty fast to get the basics up and running. It is also highly customizable, so you can do all kinds of different things with it, and of course, that takes time to learn. Granular restore capability for Exchange, SQL, Oracle, Active Directory, and SharePoint. It's a great tool to be able to go in and restore, for example, a group policy. How many of you back up your group policies as a separate task? Or do you just rely on the built-in tools with Backup Exec? Restoring a group policy from Backup Exec is not really fun, or traditional backup types. So we've used that quite a bit. There's some other features that I'll touch on here in a little bit related to that. And it's proven reliable for us over time. There have been a number of situations where we've had to use it in kind of a disaster recovery mode. And it's come through for us. The only real negative that we could come up with is that the enterprise solution, up until very recently, there wasn't really a solution to back up physical servers. So I left that in here. There is now kind of an option, and I'll touch on later, but it's really designed for virtual environments, and it does that very, very well.
And not to steal any thunder, but in 9.5 we have announced we are going to support physical machines, so it will be fully supported.
Great.
So,
good news.
no negatives.
No negatives. So Veeam recommends, and this is kind of with any backup solution, you should have the 3-2-1 rule. You should follow it. 3 copies of your data, 2 different media types, and 1 that is off-site. So here you can see we've got 3 copies of so your primary site is resetting. Your 3 copies of data, and then it moves to 2 different types, hard drive and tape, and then 1 of those gets copied off-site. So that's just a good rule of thumb to follow if you can. Sometimes that isn't feasible, but if you can, it's a great way to do it. We wanted to touch on kind of how Veeam works. It's a lot different from more traditional backup solutions. And so this is called Forever Incremental. And basically the idea is that they've got 3 restore points set here. So you've got a Thursday backup. These are the blocks of data, represent the blocks. So on Thursday it backed up, and then Friday, and then each day it's pulling in the new information. And then as moving forward, because there's 3 points of time, it's digesting the information into the VBK, which is a Veeam backup file. These VIBs are the incremental backups. So basically, forever incremental means that instead of having to worry about your master backup, your full backup, and then having incrementals in time, in certain situations, there may be an issue, whatever the case may be, your backups, you could get a chain of 50 incremental backups, and you have to restore all of those along with your full backup. You're introducing a lot of opportunity there for failure. Every one of those incrementals has to work perfectly, or you might be out of luck. So I really appreciate that Veeam does a checksum on the data and then digests the incrementals into the full backup, basically making that a moving target. So you only have, if you select you want 30 restore points, you're never going to have a backup. The full backup is always going to be 30 restore points ago. Beyond that, there's also synthetic full backup, which is actually what we use. It takes a little bit longer to do this, but once a week, the idea is it's doing an incremental backup, and then on Thursday here, you just saw it grabbed everything from Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and Wednesday. So here's your incrementals coming down, new information. And then on Thursday, it takes the incremental plus all the previous data and rolls it into a new synthetic full backup. So now you've just minimized your risk. You still have that older information. Yes, it does utilize more space on your server. But another nice thing about this is that you're not doing a full backup on your production hardware at this point. You're grabbing an incremental from your production system and then bringing it down as an incremental, and then it's grabbing the rest of the data from already verified backups. So it's a little bit harder on your backup solution, your NAS or SAN or whatever you're using for backup, but that's okay. That's not the production hardware. So you're not impacting business processes while you're doing this. And so you can have the maximum time is once per week. You can do it every other day, whatever you like. But again, you're just minimizing your risk factor because you don't have to have so many incrementals between your restore point and your last full backup. Are there any questions? I'm kind of going through this a little fast. Do you guys have any questions so far?
How many people use Veeam or have it?
Perfect. Okay.
I noticed you didn't ask how many people wish they had.
Hopefully we'll show you some cool things.
I can attest it has saved me at least 2 times in my district. And it's a good tool. I mean, it is saving everything but a few things.
So I kind of wanted to touch on some of the explorers. There's an explorer basically for each of the granular capabilities, so Exchange, SQL, et cetera. This one for Active Directory, just to give you an idea of what you can do. We have to cram a lot into an hour and 15 minutes, so I didn't want to have a tremendous amount up here. If you're curious about any of this, they have a lot of videos on their website. YouTube, actually, they maintain a channel. There's lots of how-tos there as well. The idea is you can quickly recover AD objects, including passwords, entire OUs, group policies, AD integrated DNS, and configuration partitions information. And you can then also easily compare backed up information to production. So I have a slide next about that, but basically with a few clicks, you can know what your environment looked like yesterday, and then today when somebody accidentally deleted this organizational unit or made a change on a user account or anything of that nature. And so that's what this looks like. Hopefully you guys can see. Can you see that in the back okay? Kind of? I think I can zoom in a little bit, yeah. So basically what we're looking at here is, of course, your AD structure there, and they're on users, and then they've selected compare all objects and show only changed. And so right here we can see that these 2 users are different between the restore point that you selected and today. And so then you can also see that you have options here in the restore wizard. You can objects to process, you can restore just those users that changed, anybody who was deleted. You can restore entire objects or even just attributes. You can go in and select an attribute, or as many as you like, out of their AD account or computer account. It really doesn't matter. It can be anything in AD. You can if you, this is actually the restore wizard. So if you were to double click on that and go to properties, there would be an interface to show you what actually has changed. It's comparing live with the last backup, or whatever backup you choose. If you select 2 weeks ago, it'll compare that with live, and here you go. This is what's different. So there's a lot more to Veeam Backup and Replication, and I have some live demo that I'll show you here in a second. But the name of the class was Veeam is so much more than backup. So the next component that we wanted to talk about is Veeam 1. This isn't always included. It's so if you're a smaller district, or if you have a maximum of 6 CPU sockets for your virtual environment, most of you probably go well beyond that. If you have 6 or fewer, you can get this in a bundle. Otherwise, Veeam 1 is an add-on product that you purchase separately. But it gives you tremendous insight into your environment. So for example, 24/7 real-time monitoring and alerting for backup infrastructure as well as VMware and Hyper-V environments. This overlaps a lot with what SCOM can do. However, I will say that they also have a SCOM plugin, so you can add a lot of this capability for the backup infrastructure into SCOM. Also, it has backup reporting, including backup configuration assessment. So that gives you a tool that you can use to predict, for example, how long it will be before you fill your backup storage. This is a bottleneck, like for example, your network. You're being slowed down by your network, and so it gives you tools that you can use to plan for upgrades revolving around backup. Infrastructure assessment tools, specific to backup as well. Resource optimization and what-if capacity planning, excuse me. So that's kind of what I alluded to earlier. The capacity planning part is really nice. You can find out how quickly your organization is growing and the backup requirements, and know before you start running out of space. You'll get an alert. So that's a nice thing to have. There are more than 200 preset alarms when you install Veeam 1. A lot of these are enabled by default. For example, when I initially enabled this, I had no idea that the disk queue lengths on some of my Hyper-V host servers were getting a little high. You know, they were slowing down because of the load. And so you can find that out in other ways, but it was nice that just by installing this, I had insight that I didn't have before. Oh, I have an issue. I guess I better address it.
Also say each one of those alarms are customizable. You can, let's say you can increase the queue if you wanted, so you didn't get that alarm or you're working on it. I mean, everything is customizable in those alarms.
Yeah, so it won't spam you if you turn those off or adjust them. Fully customizable reporting. You'll have the ability to generate reports on best practices, there's a ton of different options. I'll show you the interface here in a second. Really too many to talk about. Health.
There's like over 300 canned reports that come with
Yeah,
the product, and then you can build whatever report. But out of that 300, chances are somebody's already thought of it and built it.
Right. Health performance and dashboards. So there's a nice dashboard that you can throw up that gives you that insight, not only into your backup environment, but also into your production hardware. So VMware includes a lot of information in vCenter, but this may be a great complement to that. And so I think this is actually a little easier to read. It exposes the data that you might consider more critical in a very easy way. And then it also has a Microsoft Hyper-V performance and configuration assessment. So once you install this, it's specific to Hyper-V, but you can run that and get a lot of detailed information specific to Hyper-V and know where your bottlenecks are, what you need to invest in, that kind of thing. Also, reporting of unprotected VMs that are not covered by any backup jobs. I was speaking to someone earlier, and one of the things about Veeam is the interface is a little bit misleading. When you jump in to look at a server and select your virtual machines to back up, you see the server name, and then there's a little drop-down arrow, and then you see all your virtual machines. And the intuitive thing to do is, oh, I need to back up these virtual machines. Really, the thing you should be doing is selecting the top-level host server and then using exclusions to not back up anything that you don't want. Like you have maybe an imaging machine that you're just using for testing or whatever the case may be. But this will also give you insight into any virtual machines that the system sees that are not being backed up, which can be very valuable. Sometimes, we all get busy, we create something in haste, and then it sits there for a little while, and somebody else comes along, ooh, that looks like a nice server to use, and they put something into production on it, and pretty soon you don't realize that server is critical, and something happens. So this will help you identify those systems as well. So this is Veeam 1. This is the dashboard. This is actually the free edition. One thing I didn't mention yet, Veeam also is great about offering some free tools. They're kind of mostly toned down versions of the paid products, but in this case, Veeam 1 for free is a great utility that you can attach all of your virtual servers over here or your infrastructure, and it will give you some basic readouts, again, in a nice interface that makes it easy to drill down and find information. For example, and I'll show you this here in a little bit, but CPU, memory, disk, network, tasks and events that have happened to it, processes, those kind of things. Any questions so far? Okay. Veeam Endpoint Backup. So this was my little earlier, they kind of have a solution for backing up physical devices. This is it. It's called Veeam Endpoint Backup. It is free. And this is a great utility, great tool to use on servers or even your own computers. You can back up your desktop computers, your laptops. Maybe you have a superintendent machine that's critical. I actually use it on, I mentioned we're an MSP. We have some non-K-12 customers. We have HVAC systems and controllers for municipal water systems and all kinds of things that are critical that would be really crazy to rebuild, and they can't be virtualized. They have to be physically plugged into the systems that they run. So I use Veeam Endpoint Backup to daily take a backup of all of those, and because, well, let me keep going. Available backup targets include external storage, DVD, network share, and Veeam backup repositories if you already own Veeam. So I'm able to point it to my Veeam backup repository, and by doing that, I get email notifications as I would with a regular job that, hey, this was successful. So I have a lot of peace of mind now that these critical systems are, in fact, being backed up. You can easily create bootable media. So when you install Veeam Endpoint Protection, it will scan through the system and grab drivers for you that are specific to that machine, and it will create an ISO, or there's other ways to do it as well. You can create a direct DVD. I usually just create the ISO. That includes all the drivers needed to boot that up and get network access and then restore bare metal directly to that machine or even to a similar piece of hardware. It doesn't have to be the exact same one. Of course, you may deal with driver issues. But it's a great tool to be able to know I can easily restore my systems, the physical ones, if they do go down. Another feature of it is when you have it integrated with backup and replication, you can export those disks to VHD files or VHDX, or even VMDK, I think is, yeah. And so you can use this as a tool to virtualize. There are other methods as well, but one more tool that you can use to virtualize a physical system if you'd like to. Or if you need to get it back online right away, don't have time to wait for physical hardware, just virtualize it. Yeah, and then I already touched on that, but that's kind of what I use it for. And then our experiences with Veeam. It's enabled complete recovery from multiple ransomware attacks. Has anyone dealt with that yet? We've been hit several times by them, and we have great mail filtering, and as much as you do, as many barriers as you put in place, all it takes is one end user who's got access to the server, and they accidentally, whether or not it's accidental, but they open up the attachment that's in the email that looks legitimate, and in one case, nobody was informed until the next day. So an entire file server, critical file server, was completely encrypted. And yes, they lost some time. It took us some time to recover, but they were back up and running in a few hours, and they lost a day's worth of work instead of having to pay the ransomware or try and recover what was left. So, with
you said the whole file server got encrypted, so they had access to everything.
Well, not everything. It wasn't the entire file server. It was all the shares that they had access to, but it was the majority of it. It was a higher level position in the organization. So. Recovery from failed servers or RAID volume crashes. This one hits close to home for me. We recently went down the path of trying consumer SSDs in our servers, and I'm here to report that it ran swimmingly for 18 months, and then inside of 2 weeks we had 3 volume crashes. So yeah, obviously we're not going to go down that road again, and we're working to stabilize the other systems that could be affected. But Veeam to the rescue again. We had good backups. Yes, there was some work time lost because the systems went down before our backups ran again, but we were able to recover. So that's a.
What consumer SSDs are you using?
We went with Samsung 850 Pros, and there's lots of discussion on forums about how great they are, and I believe that's true, but they don't work well with RAID. So, and just so you know, the circumstances for that were that we had a drive drop out of the array and replace the drive, put it in, and within the longest time period was about 2 hours. Sequentially, two more drives dropped out of the array. So I don't think the drives were the problem. I think it was just, some quirk with the RAID controller, working.
2 JBops with 840 pros, so 48 SSDs that have been run since 2013.
And that's a great way to do it. Yep, it's specific to RAID. So, for what it's worth. We've had recovery from bad software. Oh, sorry. Yes, recovery from bad software upgrades and updates. It doesn't happen very often, but occasionally you'll have a vendor ship you a piece of software that causes some major issue, and this gives us an easy way to roll back. Snapshots are similar, of course, but especially in Hyper-V, prior to Server 2016, those are technically supported in production. So this gives us a potentially better way to do that. And then accidental deletion of Exchange, SharePoint, and Active Directory items. This is a big one as well. How many times have you had a user accidentally delete something out of Exchange? And there's ways, if you properly set up an Exchange server, there's ways to recover, through recovery deleted items, things like that. But this gives you the ability to go in and granularly restore that one email message or contact, appointment, whatever the case may be. I've had to use the Active Directory one a couple of times as well. Somebody just accidentally, doesn't quite realize what they're right-clicking on and deleting, and oop. So, any questions so far? Yes.
You said that the free one works for bare metal recovery for the old computers that you're sitting there.
Mhm.
Do you have to install a client on those in order to back them up, or do you back them up with an external software?
So the question was the older bare metal machines that I have laying around, and we back up with Veeam endpoint protection. Is there a client that gets installed on the local workstation? And the answer is yes. Veeam Backup and Replication can back up all the virtual machines without an agent involved, but endpoint protection, it is an agent you install. It's actually a piece of software you install. And so there is some hands-on, you've got to go touch the machine to configure it. So, but it sounds like maybe that's changing. Don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's still a little unclear. There still will be, with physical machine, you always have to have some piece of software on it.
Sure.
So, how that evolves in 9.5 is still.
Right.
So the Veeam endpoint protection, the new thing?
That was released in version 8, which is about a year and a half ago. It was, again, really designed for workstations, laptops, desktops. People started figuring out, hey, if it's Windows, I could back up. So we have tons of customers using it in their server environments for their physical server.
So I'm kind of confused because you were saying there's no physical backup, but yet we're talking about physical backup.
It's not a part of Veeam Backup and Replication. It's a separate utility that they...
Exactly. Yeah, and it's a free product. So right now, since it's a free product, it's email-only support.
Right.
When it rolls into the full version, then you'll have all the...
And it doesn't back up 20 terabyte volume.
So that's kind of the end of the slideshow.
One more question.
Yeah.
Can Veeam actually protect physical backups for from being encrypted by ransomware?
No, not. If the server itself is infected with administrative credentials and that takes off, then if there's a UNC, a map drive or a UNC path to that, I don't believe so today. Do you know if
You
that's...
saw how fast I looked at you. So.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to. If you're rooted, you're screwed.
Right. The only thing I could think of would be to do something with, like scripting where you map the drive just prior to your back, as a part of a pre-backup script. You map the drive, have the backup run, and then a postscript detaches the volume.
I was thinking Sam, you told me that there was some setting that you could set so that it would do that without the...
That's what I was just talking about.
See, I'm thinking, wouldn't it do proxy? Wouldn't that, so, because you can proxy it off to a machine and then have that connect, and that sends it up to your repository. Yeah, if that proxy machine did get infected, yeah, it could go back, but you know, your chances of that proxy machine getting infected would be a lot lower than your file server or something like that. So,
To date, the ransomware behavior has been to target a single machine and do what it can from that location. It would be mind-boggling to begin infecting other machines and potentially getting other encryption keys in that environment. It would defeat the purpose. Their goal is to make money from you. They have to be able to decrypt the data. So if you've got multiple encryption keys from multiple machines all encrypting different pieces of data, it would be a minefield. It would be a nightmare. So
yes and no, it can. You could infect a repository. I don't know. I mean,
We run our repository on GFS, so we're able to just snapshot the repository.
Mhm.
But if that were to get infected, I can just roll it back.
yeah.
yep, that's a good way to do it as well. Yes, sir.
So, you still using like semantic for physical servers?
We are not. We've switched to, we've virtualized pretty much everything we can. We're smaller schools, so we don't quite have the budget for VMware. We are all Hyper-V. But yeah, pretty much everything we can has been virtualized, so we utilize Veeam. And then, like I say, a lot of our districts have gone to endpoint protection for those few remaining physical servers that we just can't virtualize because of some kind of a external connection to the physical hardware.
I have this backup with Veeam to the backup server, which has backup exec on it, and then I want to get it to tape, but I can't go directly from Veeam because backup exec is taking the tape over.
Oh, you're trying to share the tape library? Yeah. Yeah, so we need our own.
We'll still need two backup physical servers, you know, that's,
But you could use endpoint as a stopgap till 9.5, which would be this summer,
yeah.
if those are Windows servers 2008 RTA developed.
And endpoint does give you granular restore capability. Even without backup replication, you can just run the standalone software on that server, and you'd be able to go in and view all of the individual files. You'd be able to restore, you know, if there's databases and things like that, it wouldn't necessarily process that, but so.
Veeam does have, if you have like direct attached storage or SCSI Connect, whatever, you can mount in labs your backups. So you can mount a full server and play with it, you know, test installing updates and stuff like that, and then you can do them or apply them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yep, so you can create a virtual lab in just a few clicks. The setup of that is a little bit more complex. Of course, you're dealing with disparate networks and things like that. But within a few clicks, you can set up a virtual lab and select the 5 servers that you need to test some process. Maybe it's an upgrade or something, you know, more extreme. And then it brings those systems online, run your process. When you're done, you just disassemble the lab and it discards that data. Or you can even also roll what you've just done back into production, which is kind of a neat thing. So
You can also use that same utility for something we call sure backup, and that basically will validate that all your backups will be restorable. If you talk to IDC or Forrester or Gartner, they say that typically 20% of your restores out there are going to fail. Those are particularly in older legacy technology or tape or something like that, where sure backup basically ensures that every single one of your backups are going to be able to come back online. So having that verification is really good.
And then we didn't really touch on the replication component. We aren't, you know, most of our districts are fairly small, so we don't really have many districts that have the hardware to enable true replication. But Veeam also supports replication. So, you know, for example, you could have we're Hyper-V shop, so 2 Hyper-V servers, and it will keep a copy of that server or virtual machines on another target that's, you know, geographically separated, whatever the case may be, and it can do that on a rotation schedule. You can build in an automated system, what do they call that? A failover plan. You can build a failover plan so that if the primary server does go down, the system automatically fails over to the other one, similar to the technologies that already exist in Hyper-V and in VMware. But because it's tied to your backup system, there are some extra insights that you can get out of that as well. And then a simple failed back, when the production server comes back online, it copies over the data that's been modified and you're back in your original state.
And it'll re-IP and everything else. And nice thing about that is it's included in the product, so you get backup and replication in a single license, as opposed to having to go to VMware and buy site recovery and another tool.
So, gotta go the right way. This is one of my customers in our service area, and this is what the console looks like. You can see I've got several jobs in here. They're actually going through a migration right now. So their financial system and court system, it's a city government, is going through a conversion. And so I'm actually backing up several of these. These two jobs are running every 2 hours from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if something goes wrong with this conversion, I can roll back really easily. And these backups, let me pull up the report here. So here's what a backup job looks like. You can see that it took 4 minutes and 53 seconds, and it transferred 601 megabytes. So nobody notices this happening. It's really a phenomenal thing to know that I can restore at any given time, just to a couple of hours ago, worst case scenario, and nobody's complaining that the server slows down or anything.
Doesn't the, at least on VMware, I thought it paused the VM and snapshotted it? Is that not how this works?
It does not work that way. It's able to use VSS and take a live backup. It still snapshots, but because of VSS, it's able to. Does VMware pause?
I thought it was pausing the VM, but
Yeah, so VMware, it's kind of VMware's stun issue, and it continues to get better and better. But in version 8, we also released snapshot integration. So if you're on a supported hardware platform like HP, NetApp, now EMC, VNX, VNXC, and then we're adding Nimble and 95, you can actually do your backups right from the snapshot, and that eliminates the stun issue. But otherwise, it's VSS consistent. So unless it's highly transactional database, like a SQL database, it's really negligible. I noticed that. But
My apologies.
integration doesn't work.
My apologies, I don't know.
sorry.
Didn't know that one. Let's see. In this case, this is what I was talking about in terms of your bottleneck. It shows me that the source was actually the bottleneck. So my network is fine, my target is fine. The server actually was the bottleneck, but it still processed at 500 and almost 50 megabytes per second. So I'm okay with that. Over here on the left, you have your backup jobs. I guess I should run you through what it looks like. I can right-click and start. I can do an active full, which means that it's going to go do a complete separate backup and create a new backup chain for my incrementals. And as the old backups expire, the information will, of course, be removed. I can get statistics. I can get a report on it. The statistics is just what I showed you. And then under Edit here, here's the date and time that I created the job, the name of it. Here's the virtual machines. So this is what I was talking about when you add your host. The best way to do it is to actually click on the host itself here. By the way, there's a yellow exclamation mark because Veeam has detected that there are some updates that should be applied. Those are actually hot fixes and primarily revolve around clustering. So, and these aren't clustered servers, they're standalone. So that's why they're there. But if I add that top level host to the backup job, excuse me, now you can see that it's there, and it will just simply back up everything on that host, regardless of how many virtual machines there are. And then I can come over here to exclusions, and this is where I would tell it that I do not want to back up this, this test server that I'm just using temporarily, or whatever the case may be. For storage, this is where I select my repository. Again, these are kind of smaller customers. They don't have SANs and kind of big level hardware. This is just a NAS, but I've created a repository here. This is version 9, so there's another option called a scale-out repository. If this repository runs out of room, I can actually build what's called a scale-out repository where it will take multiple targets and roll them into one so that I don't have to worry about expanding that particular NAS in this case. I can just add another one, and it will manage where the backup files go. It will use one or the other and kind of load balance between them, completely hands-off for me. You can configure secondary backup destinations. This is where I was talking about you can do a cloud provider, or you can have a secondary target somewhere within your environment just as another copy of your data, if you will. And this is actually done based on replication from the backup job. You're not actually backing up your production hardware twice in the same day or any given time span. This grabs the data from the already backed up information and replicates it over to that target. So it's not a full backup. It is a copy of what just happened, and it happens quickly because it's only grabbing what's new and changed.
And Sam, that's an excellent point. The other thing you can do with that is have a different retention period on that
Yes.
secondary copy as well. So if it's more of a long-term archive, or you send it off-site or to a cloud provider or tape, maybe you want to keep that for 3 years versus your production backups that you may be on 2 weeks.
Right.
So it gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yep. Under advanced here, we've got our backup modes. Reverse incremental was the first method that they came out with. I didn't illustrate that, but the idea basically is that when you take a backup, it grabs all of your blocks that have changed and rolls them into a full restore point, and then it compares that with what existed yesterday and grabs all those blocks and moves them out into the backup chain. And so you end up with your most recent backup is a full restore point. It takes longer to process that, of course, and there is one gotcha that we were kind of bit with. We started using that initially because the idea is that means faster restores. It doesn't have to do anything other than just copy the latest backup because that is your full. However, if that backup job is interrupted, then you end up with an unusable backup point in time. That entire thing is corrupted. So we elected to not go that route in the future.
Yeah, it got me. We were going through a bond, and the contractors working late unplugged the whole rack, and it was the middle of a job, and it blew up my entire repository. I had to start over, and I about lost it because all of my backups were gone. So I have changed that. I have 2 sets of backups now, but yeah, that's the worst feeling, to lose all of your backups. And yeah.
That's what we were just talking about.
That's
Yeah.
reversal. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've since switched to incremental, which is actually recommended. And then we also do, you can see here on Sunday on this one, I have it perform that synthetic full backup. So I keep 30 days on this particular server, I believe. That was how many restore points there were. And I don't have to worry about the 29 incrementals in between today and that full backup. I only have to worry about a maximum of 7. So that helps keep peace of mind. And then you can also have it create, if you're blessed with lots of storage, you can have it create periodic full backups as well, and that again creates a brand new backup chain, but you're utilizing that much more space on your appliance or whatever it is. You can do storage level corruption guard, which actually, I'm glad I looked at that. I normally have that checked. So the last Friday of every month, in this case, it will basically do a checksum of all the data, another one outside of the backup job, just to verify that everything is still in 100% restorable state. I think I've got lots to show you, so we may end up running out of time. So I'm going to kind of go through this a little faster. You can change your compression level depending upon whether it's local storage or remote, the performance specs of your server, that kind of thing. Notifications, of course, settings specific to Hyper-V, and here's those pre and post scripts spot I was talking about. So if you wanted to do anything prior or after the job. Application processing, so this is going to truncate SQL, Exchange, all those kinds of, it'll do processing on all the data that you may have. And for servers that don't have those roles, you can change this so that it's copy only, so that you get a point-in-time restore, but there's no processing on an SQL database that doesn't exist. You can index the file system. So with Veeam Enterprise, which I'll show here in a second, it's a separate installer, but included with backup and replication. You can index the file system, and you're actually able to present a web page to your end users, if you so choose, where they would be able to go in and restore anything that they have access to themselves. And if they don't know how to drill down in the file path, they can search for it. And so the indexing makes sense in that case. Obviously, I don't do that. We're small enough that I don't mind a phone call to restore a file. But some of you, maybe that's an option that you may want to do, self-serve restore capabilities for file servers and things like that. And then here's your scheduling options. So how often you want it to run, daily at this time. You can select specific days. You can have it run after the previous job, monthly at this time, periodically every X number of hours, minutes, and also continuously. When you have it do it continuously, there is a stop and a start point. Basically, it just repeats the job over and over and over again. Gets the job done. So it is, in that way, basically a continuous backup. Any questions on that before I close out? Uh-huh. Yep. Whoops. Sure, yep. That's under storage, advanced scripts. That one? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh, okay.
What are some scenarios where you'd use pre and post scripts?
I haven't had to at all, but I remember. Yeah, I remember old yeah. Yep.
Beforehand and start back up after.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize that it's not showing the entire screen. It's like I'm still zoomed in, but I'm not. That's weird. Okay, so down here it actually says backup infrastructure, and that's going to be sad. Oh, it changed around. Okay, this is remote. I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay, so this is your backup infrastructure. This is where you create your backup proxies, repositories, your scale-out repositories, etc. In this case, I don't have any backup proxies. I'm using what's called on-host. But if I had a physical backup server, I'm actually running Veeam inside my own Hyper-V environment. So it's backing itself up in a way. But if you had a physical server separate of your virtual environment, you can have it do all the processing. So it's not bogging down your virtual host servers to process that. Most of our customers, as probably yours, shut down at night, and there's plenty of time there, so no big deal. Backup repositories, same kind of thing. I could have a list of repositories here and send some jobs to one and others to another. And then the scale-out repositories I haven't had to use yet, but I've read a little bit on it. That's, again, where you can take multiple repositories and it treats them as one, so you don't have to worry about managing your space available. WAN accelerators, when you click on this, we actually don't have Enterprise Plus in this environment, but you can see there's a 30-day trial. And when you have Enterprise Plus, you get access to the Cloud Connect feature. And then here's a list of your managed servers and, again, the missing updates. This is actually a really nice tool because it can kind of let you know if you're behind on your updates. And oops, that's not what I wanted. I want missing updates. So, but you can see here, these are all related to clustering. So, And then under virtual machines, this is where you can drill down and list each virtual machine on, oh, these are the hosts. I'm sorry, pardon me. That's under here. I skipped ahead. So under backup and replication, under disk here on the left, you can open up each of your host servers, or it would just show up as one big cluster if you have a cluster. And then you can right-click on a virtual machine, and you have the ability to instantly recover that VM. So with a few clicks, if I had something happen, I can immediately initiate a job that recovers it right back to where it was at the last backup point. I can also restore the entire VM. I can just restore some files from it. Or if it's Microsoft or Linux, those are treated differently. And of course, I don't want to delete it. And then over here is that backup that I made I told you about earlier. This is the server that I wanted. I was doing a process on it. I wanted to make sure, this is the financial system, absolutely 100% that I had another clean backup on another set of disks. So I was able to right-click on the server itself. And, oop, it's not there. It's, Oh, yeah. Nope, it's not there. Sorry. Should have practiced this one. Anyway, there's a spot where you can go where you can right-click and say create a zip backup. And it's a real simple process and gives you peace of mind for anything major. Any questions on that before I jump to Veeam Enterprise? So Veeam Enterprise is a website, like I mentioned, that gives you a little extra insight into your environment. You can see here, my apologies, I'm having to scroll. You can see here I have a snapshot of my environment over the last 24 hours, and I can change that to 7 days. And so you can see that the average processing rate is 157 megabytes per second, VM size, full backup size, the size of my restore points on disk. Gives you a little graph about how long it took. There's a lot of reporting capability built into Veeam Enterprise, although that's actually tied to Veeam 1, which I'll show here in a second. Here's my backup jobs. Gives me a listing and my VMs. You can control who has access to what through this interface. Of course, it's AD integrated, so I can give maybe a more technical person at a school district, at a building, access to this, and they can actually go in and granularly restore a file on behalf of somebody, so your IT staff doesn't have to be directly engaged in that. They can't restore an entire server, those kind of things. They can just go in and restore what they have access to through NTFS permissions. So, and that's done under this files tab here. So basically, I would just type in the VM name. Again, it should be somebody a little bit technical. And then I can browse or I can hit search, and that's where that indexing would be nice. You can index everything so the searches are near instant. And then this is all fully auditable, so this requests tab would list every time somebody requested a file be restored. So you can go back and find out exactly what happened in your environment. This is also where you create your encryption keys. So without Veeam Enterprise Manager, Backup Enterprise Manager installed, you cannot create your encryption key so that your backups can be encrypted. So that's a very important component if that's something that you need to look at. Again, this is included with backup and replication. Any questions on that before I move on? There's not a lot there, but it is a nice utility to have. Okay. Do you have anything to add, Jeremiah? So this is Veeam 1, and I did leave, again, this is a separate paid product, but this is what gives you a lot of extra insight into your environment. I did leave a couple of error messages up there so you can see kind of what that looks like. So I can see my virtual machine infrastructure here, and click on that virtual host and see that there was an error, failed to collect events data for object, that virtual machine. But that happened 3 days ago, 4 days ago, so not too worried about it. I can acknowledge that. So let's go to my primary virtual host server. I get a summary of what's on it, how much RAM, that kind of thing. But then I can drill over horizontally and see all of the virtual machines that are on it, how much provision space they have, use space, their CPU usage, basically a summary. Overall, I can get lots of graphing, CPU usage, network, virtual switch, disk. So this is a nice one. Of course, the great bottleneck of virtualization is storage. And so this gives you a lot of insight into disk latency over X amount of time, disk queue length, disk usage, those kinds of things that there are ways to get them, but that's not always easy. This is also a nice one, top VM, so you can kind of see who my backup server, because it processes backups every 2 hours, so its average CPU is a little bit higher, but you can see where the load of your network is, or your virtual infrastructure, I should say. And then further drilling down into a virtual machine, you can get detailed information about that specific one, of course. Memory, disk, network, etc. Business view, this is something that probably directors would like to see. It gives you an insight into your network and reports that you can generate to verify that, yes, I have good solid backups, or I'm meeting my, you can actually add, a lot of this I haven't set up for this particular environment, but I can add an SLA to these virtual machines. So this system, I can set metrics that it needs to be able to meet, and it will tell me if I can meet those or not, and recommend steps that I should take to remediate that. And of course, there's all kinds of other details in here, but here's your data store, so you can drill down and see if there's any errors or warnings. And then here's your data protection view. So this will tell me, this is the part of Veeam 1 that will tell me if I have a virtual machine that it exists on my network somewhere, but it isn't actually being backed up. And of course, I can generate a report about that and get an email message as well. But I can go in here and get a monthly summary to know how much free space, the backup utilization. This is a nice one right here. So capacity planning. It's telling me that I'll be out of space in more than a year. Yay! And then here's your built-in alerts. And again, there's 300 of them, I think. Yeah, and
Chatty, so you want to throttle it.
yeah, exactly. You turn this on, and you'll you get a lot of email initially. So, but every one of these is customizable and targetable to specific systems if you like. And of course, there's actions that it can take, all the things that you would expect. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, we have about 15 minutes left. 3:30.
I think, yeah.
Are there any questions about what we've covered? We've been using this for a couple of years, so we've got some experience with it. Of course, we have a vendor here, so David knows quite a bit more about it probably than I do. Yes, sir. We looked at a couple of others. Back when we started looking at this, there weren't a lot that had, kind of from the ground up virtualization support. The Veeam's real appeal to me was that it wasn't one of the legacy products that has added virtual machine support. It's from the ground up for this. And of course, Veeam works very closely with VMware and Microsoft. They actually maintain offices in each of those locations. And so they have direct access to the people who are making these systems. So it was very appealing in that regard. And we did a bunch of research with, I contacted a couple of other agencies using it, did a bunch of background on it, and everything was positive. Everybody really liked it. So.
It also doesn't have like agents. You
Don't have to worry about agents. You know, that, yeah, I remember those days. That was fun.
Hey, I want to throw you a softball, Jeremiah. Maybe you could describe an example of how it saved your bacon. You described it earlier. Give a example of the locker and what all happened.
Last September, you guys know Pendleton Roundup? Yeah. Okay, yeah. All I can say is thank God for Pendleton Roundup. And Veeam, yes. Our school district closes down for that week because the town just goes nuts. So I had 2 extra drives. I was going to expand my storage array in one of my servers. So I called Dell. They, kind of walked me through. Yeah, everything will fit. Everything looks good. So about 1 o'clock, I went down there, slotted up the drives. Everything was building correct. Great. 5 o'clock, I get an alert that my server's offline. I'm like, what? Can't log in. I'm like, what? So I drive down there, and it's at the no logical drives found. I'm like, what? So I go into the RAID, and it is completely gone. There is no RAID configuration. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I call Dell, and I tell them, and they're like, I don't know. So they have me power cycle, move some drives around, stuff. For some reason, when those 2 drives were rebuilding, something happened and wiped out the entire RAID configuration. So it was my mail and my file server were on it. And I about lost it. I was like, what do I do now? So I called Sam, and it had my Veeam on there, so I had to reinstall Veeam on another server, and I was able to pull the configuration. It saw the repository, and I said, restore. And it did take me 30 hours to restore everything, but everything was back. And nobody knew it was down because of Roundup. So that's what I say, thank God for Roundup. But that is the one case that it saved me. I mean, I was dead in the water. I mean, my entire file server, my entire mail was gone.
And of course, what's nice about that is you don't have to worry about rebuilding the file server, then restoring files.
Yeah.
You can just restore the whole thing.
Yeah.
A couple of caveats with that. The reason it took 30 hours is, again, because we use NAS instead of SAN or something a little bit more robust. Again, just because of cost. And then also, we're also on that server. His backup server, his Veeam server, was on that server that died.
Yeah.
So this is something also that I forgot to touch on. It's very nice that Veeam has a built-in configuration backup. So every day, your configuration gets backed up to your repository or wherever you like it to, really. And so we were able to build a new server, put Veeam on it, point it to this, everything came back. It was a very clean process.
Yeah. I mean, the full configuration of Veeam. I mean, everything. I just had to find that VM again and say restore, and it's going. So, yeah, like I said, it saved my bacon. We've been hit with ransomware. We've had to use it for that. I mean, it's a good tool. So, yeah.
A few more minutes. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Did you say that the Veeam one is a different purchase, or is that included with enterprise? I don't remember.
I can touch on that. So there's a couple different ways to do it. So Veeam One is a separate product that you can buy as a standalone. Same with Management Pack, which integrates with SCOM. But you can also buy both with what we call the availability suite. And that gives you discounted Veeam One. It's also sold per socket. So all our products are sold per physical socket on your ESX or Hyper-V OS. So availability suite just basically bundles backup and replication and Veeam One at a discounted price. So So you save a few $100 per socket outage.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Somebody have a question? Okay, well, I guess that's about all we have for you. So.
Okay.
Yeah.